run you through how to get the exponential model or exponential regression using your calculator. I'm going to run through the example we did in class just so you can see the steps one more time. So the problems we're going to do, we're going to have some inputs and some outputs, and often they'll be labeled X and Y. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get this table of data into the calculator. So once you have your calculator on, you're going to press this stat button, and this should bring up this menu. And we want to edit our lists, so we're going to start there. And then in your lists, L1 is where you're going to put X, all your X values, and L2 is where you're going to put all your Y values. Once again, if there's something already in the list and you want to clear them out, arrow up, so you're highlighting L1, press clear, and enter, and everything should clear out. Once it is, we can start entering all of the data. So the X's are pretty straightforward. It's just the numbers 1 through 7, and once again, I'm getting these from the table right here. Then I'm going to arrow over to my L2 list. Once again, you can clear it out if you need to. And now I'm going to enter the corresponding Y values. And once you've entered everything, you can know you're in pretty good shape when the length of your two lists corresponds. And it's going to be important that they do, because once you try to plot them, if you don't have the same number of data points in each list, you're going to get an error. So now that I have all the data into my lists, I want to plot them on the graph. So I'm going to go to second and then press the Y equals, so I open up the stat plot menu. And you may have some of these on or off from what we did in class, but for now we only want plot 1 on. So if any of these other ones are on, you may need to go into them and turn them to off. But I'm going to go into plot 1. I want to turn it on, so I want to highlight the on and press enter. We should be in a scatter plot, which is this first option in type. And then you want to make sure your X list is L1 and your Y list is L2. If these ever get cleared or changed, to access L1, you just press second and then the number 1, because that gets you the L1, and it will show up right there. The mark does not really matter which mark you use. I prefer the first one. It's a good solid mark that you can see clearly on the screen. At this point, you want to make sure that your graph is set up to view the data. Because right now, if I press graph, I'm back to my standard window, and as you can see, nothing is showing up. But that's because our first data point, the Y is 12, and this only goes from 10 to negative 10. So to change the window, I'm going to press the window button. I press window, and I'm just going to use the table to determine what my min and max. And I always want to leave a little bit of room on each side of both the smallest and largest data point. So my X data goes 1 to 7, so I'm going to go 0 to 8. Sometimes I'll do 10 just to be a nice round number. And then my Y's go from 12 to 96, so I'm going to go 0 to 100. And also, because now we're going from 0 to 100, I don't want it to be counting or notching on the axis every 1, so I'm going to change the Y scale to 10. This just makes the graph look a little bit cleaner. So now when I graph, I have the data points here. And now the big part we need is we need to find this exponential model. All the problems you're going to have are going to use the word model, and they're going to tell you what type of model you want. So what I do now is the calculator is going to come up with the function for me. So I'm going to go to stat once again. I'm going to press the stat button. And now I want to calculate what I have in the table. So I'm going to scroll down, and depending upon what it asks, there may be some problems where we do this power regression. That would be a power model, but since we want an exponential model, we're going to get the exponential regression. So I'm going to press enter here. Now yours may look a little bit different from mine, but the key is your X list is going to be L1, and that's what I'm going to put here. I'm going to press second, and number 1 to get L1 and a comma. and then your Y list should be L2. And once again, if you have that menu that has a couple different lines that say X list and Y list, and then store the reg equation, you'll just fill in those blanks there. Now then, arrow down until you get to the store regression equation, and now you want to put the equation into Y1 so that it will graph the line for you. So you're going to press this vars button. This is short for variables. You're going to arrow over to Y vars, and we want functions, and we want the Y1. Okay, so for some of you, that would be the store regression equation. That's where you're going to put the Y1. Once you have everything filled in, either press enter if you have this screen, or press enter on calculate. And now it gives you this. Now, what this tells you is this gives you the regression equation. So in your homework or whatever it is, when you want to find the exponential model, this is what you will be writing in. And that I have y equals, and then a is this value, and we'll go ahead and round it. Sorry, I'm using the touchpad to draw here, so my writing's not very good. Worse than normal. I'm just going to do 8.46 times, and then the 1.42 to the x. So this is the actual model. This is the actual regression equation that you want. And then the reason we took that extra step to store it in Y1 is that now that equation has been plugged into Y1, and they didn't have to round it quite where we did. And now when you graph, you can actually see this regression, and you should see that it follows along our plotted points pretty clearly. You can trace along this line by pressing trace, and then the default is it's going to start on your plot, so you see the P1 up here. You want to arrow down until you see the Y1. Now you're actually along your curve. And then if you want to see some new data points, oh, what is this going to predict that Y will be the number of scooters sold in year 8 is, I press 8 and press enter. And so we can use this curve to generate some extra information. Once again, when you are done with this, if you no longer want to see this graph anymore, you can always go through here and clear out your Y1. And then if you want to turn off your plot so you don't see that scatter plot anymore, in the Y equals menu, arrow up and press enter to turn off the plot. And now you see the graph. I just have the curve. I don't have those plotted points anymore. So when you get it, you're doing another problem of a different type, you no longer want to see those scatter plots. You just turn it off. Okay. All right. That's how to do the regression using your calculator.